Hi y'all, Morgan from Madeira, USA here. Today we are live with Nancy Minnie, our lovely embroidery expert here at headquarters, in part 2 of a 4-part series we're working on with specific garments and fabric types. So today you'll see that she'll be working with caps and kind of telling us some best practices, hooping techniques, which stabilizers and needles to use, and so on. We love the idea of staying connected with you, so jump in, tell us about the experience you have with working on caps. Give us a thumbs up, let us know if you're watching live, and of course, comment with any questions you have about the products Nancy mentions today. So without further ado, Nancy, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Morgan. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining in. And so we're going to delve right into caps, and we are going to talk about the anatomy of a cap first, just so that we're all aware of what a cap consist of. So I'm going to kind of grab this cap, and Morgan created these graphics here to help us understand them a little bit. And for the most part we know what they are. So today we're talking about baseball caps, and they can be structured, which means they have the buckram on the inside, and that's nice and firm. You can see has a nice solid look to it. Or they could be a baseball cap that's unstructured. So notice how floppy that head is, and the reason why is because there's no buckram on the inside. It's just fabric. Both caps are great. They serve good purposes. It really has to do with what your likes are, or what your customers' likes are, I should say. So going back to the anatomy of the cap, of course, that's your bill. This is your crown. There's eyelets in there to let your head breathe. And each of these panels is called a panel. And this one actually has 6. So you have 2 in the front and 4 in the back. The 2 in the front are structured. So that's what you call a 6-panel structured cap. Nice high profile. Gives you lots of room to embroider on. Whereas this guy is also structured. He's got the buckram in there. Not quite as sturdy as this one here. But if you notice the 2 different profiles, this guy over here has a nice big profile, or high profile, and this guy is just kind of shorter. So basically what that means is you have more room to embroider over here than you do over here. So a nice simple Madeira logo. It's going to fit on there nice and well. So fabrics, so the theme of I'm not actually going to talk about that, so I'm not going to get rid of it just yet. But the theme here today, or for these 4 different ones, is for the fabric. And today's fabric is the cap. And generally caps are twill for the most part. So it's a nice tightly woven fabric. Kind of has an angle to the design of the fabric. And it's a nice sturdy fabric, whether it's your unstructured cap or your structured cap. So it's nice and sturdy. So a tearaway backing is what we're going to use on that. And so let's see, I do have another graphic here I think that we can talk about as well. Probably the biggest thing that you have to consider when you're embroidering on caps is the digitizing. The digitizing itself is very specific for a cap. And if you think about, spreading out a tablecloth, you spread it on your table and you start pushing away because you want to push that fabric flat. The same thing happens when you're going to digitize for a cap. So very often, if this were digitized for a shirt or whatnot, you'd start with the M of Madeira and go all the way over to the right. And that's fine for your shirts, jackets, and things like that. But when you're embroidering on a cap is round. Your cap hoops are round, as opposed to if you're embroidering flat. So for that reason, if you look at the arrows, the way it tells you to digitize, if that was Madeira and I'm going to digitize this for a cap, what you simply do is you start with either the D or the E, but you would do the E-I-R-A over here, and then you would do the D, well maybe I said that twice, but only one D, A and M. So basically you're stitching from this way out to that way, you're stitching from the center this way. In addition to going side to side, notice the arrow goes up. As you're doing those stitch outs, you want to be stitching from the brim up, And those are just the basics when it comes to digitizing. this is probably a good time to point out that we have a webinar that's on our website, Madeira USA. Go to the education section and scroll down until you find the webinar that says Meeting the Challenge Head On, Embroidering on Caps. This webinar was done a few years ago with myself and Eric Campbell. If you're out there, Eric, I hope you're doing well. And so that webinar is very important for you to be aware of, because you want to go check that out. After we talk today, I'm going to show you some best practices on hooping and talk about what you really need to be sure of. But please check out that webinar when you have a chance. Eric is very knowledgeable in all things embroidery, and he has some really great tips and tricks and directions that are specific for digitizing for caps. So I'm going to take this guy aside here. And so we talked about the cap itself. We got our digitizing kind of out of the way. Let's talk about backing. I want to remember that this guy's in here because it's important to talk about that. Backing is basically for caps. So it's cut specific, so it's nice and thin. It's going to fit on your hoops really well. And it's basically a heavy tearaway backing. It's usually either a 2.5 ounce or a 3 ounce. Sometimes you may need 2 of those to do the job that you're working on for specific reasons. But essentially it is a heavyweight tearaway backing. They come in pre-cuts like these. That's a 4-inch, maybe a 4.5 inch by 7, simply for doing the front of it. Maybe you like them a little bit longer for maneuvering when you're hooping, or you're going to be embroidering on the sides of the hat, so you get a little more extra stability there. 2.5 and 3 ounce tearaways. I prefer the rolls to have those on hand because I like to be able to cut it to whatever length I want it to be for the specific hat, the hoop. And if you joined us a few weeks ago with our Hugo's Amazing Tape, you'll notice I have that on here as well. I'm able to write on it. I do like to keep my tags with it so I know exactly what that backing is. We're going to use that in a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about the hoop driver and the hoops that come with your machine. Today we're going to be using both the Malco machine and the Tajima machine, but we're only going to be doing the hoop driver, the cap driver when it comes to the Malco machine. So I'm just going to hop over here. I'm going to throw our light on it a little bit, get a little bit going, a little bit brighter here. So essentially most of your embroidery is done with those flat hoops, and you got the arms that come out that you hook those hoops onto. Those have to come off when you're going to embroider with your caps. And you have to get this red, for this machine it's a red hoop driver, and basically that's just what accepts the hoops. So on this particular machine, it's a single head machine. It came with 2 hoops. Why does it come with 2 hoops? Well, because as you're embroidering one and you're doing production, you're going to be hooping your next one and you're going to have that one ready. So as soon as it finishes, you can switch it over and you can start working on your finished cap, take it out, get the next one capped. So that's how your production kind of keeps going.
That's a great point, Nancy. With a machine that has 2 heads, does it often come with 4 hoops?
That's correct, Morgan. Exactly. So you want to be running 2 hats over there, and you've got your 4 hoops, 2 for each head. And that just allows you to keep things going. You don't have to stop.
Perfect.
Keep it going really quick. So this is our hoops. And we're going to really we're going to delve in deep when it comes to hooping caps, because if you're not hooping it correctly, the design or the embroider itself is just not going to come out well. You might get a lot of flagging when it comes to the embroidery, and what that means is that fabric is bouncing up and down, and we know machines don't like that. So we want to get those as tight as possible. So I'm just going to pop that on there just for now, hold it in place. So I think this would be a good time. We're going to delve right in and start hooping.
Awesome. I'm going to hover right over you. We'll get a nice up-close look.
Go right ahead. We got plenty of room here. So notice so this is the cardboard that simply comes in the hat when you purchase it. You know, this came in a sleeve of like either 10 or 12 hats, and it came this way with that cardboard in there. Cardboard is not stabilizer. Cardboard is simply there, and you can put it back in for your customers when you go to give it to them, because it kind of keeps the hat in good shape, but never use that as your stabilizer. I'll admit I've left it in there by mistake from time to time, so just get in the habit of making sure that comes out, and by all means keep it. You know, when you're ready to hand these off to your customer, putting that back in there is kind of a nice presentation, and kind of shows that you care. So we have a flex fit cap here. There's no keyhole in the back. It's all nice and solid. Very nice hat. So talking about nice hats versus not so nice hats, when it comes to quality of any end product, and it works for hats or caps too, think about what you're purchasing, what the end product is going to be used for, and you know, make your decisions when you're purchasing it based on you get what you pay for. So if you're buying low end, you might run into more issues when you're doing the embroidery, as opposed to spending a little more money and you're spending way less time fighting the product. So always consider, you know, if something's out there for one day, it's never going to be used again, you know, maybe you want to consider a lower end product, but just remember that your name's out there on it at some point. So we're going to talk about backing here. Like I said, I typically like to use the roll because I like to cut it to a specific size.
It's nice and convenient that all of those are about, 4 inches tall, so they can just fit right inside the backing, inside the hat. I'm sorry.
That's correct. Yep, and same thing with your hoop here. Whoops, sorry about that, guys. Yes. So if they're any wider, they would actually be in the way of the crown, because you can only embroider so far up here. Once that starts going over the edge here, that's not a good place to embroider. It's not to say that you can't, because I particularly am always going to push the envelope when it comes to, you know, embroidering, whether it's a different type of thread or a different type of design. We've got some examples in the back there. So once we get this going, I'm going to talk about the different caps that we have. So I like this to be about 20 inches. So that's why I have my ruler here. These are my favorite scissors because I like them not only are they great for just trimming your backing to size, they're perfect for when you're trimming away the cutaway backings as well. Nice and little. You can't do too much damage with them. The smaller they are, it kind of works a little better. So here I have my piece of backing. And what I want to do is, this came off a roll, so it has a nice curve to it. But if you're buying the pre-cuts, they tend to be flat. Right? They're nice and flat, and that's just how they are. They have a certain amount of memory. So as they're sitting in a package, they're nice and flat. I still want to add a little bit of roundness to this, so I'm just going to rub it like you would do with ribbon.
Yeah.
Gives it a little more curl. And the reason why I do that is because I want it to sit nicely on my cap.
Perfect.
So when it comes to cap hooping, there are specifics, and it's notice I have sweatband written right here. Kind of forget. Oh, I think it's this one here. I forgot to pull the sweatband out. So it's not really ruined.
Just a little reminder?
Just a little reminder so that I'm going to pull that sweatband out. So if you have a friend or somebody you want to give this hat to, it's great. Tell them not to say it was you that embroidered it. But you certainly wouldn't want to send that to a customer. But it's great for display. So, and by the way, that's Hugo's Amazing Tape again, because I didn't want to write on the actual
good for everything.
He's going to keep popping up, I think, Hugo's. All right, so what I'm doing now is I got it kind of on there. However, I'm pulling the sweatband as well, because that needs to go right up underneath there. That means it's going to be out of the sewing area. also getting it around. There's like rods that stick out here. They have a use. And what we have is we have a nice red line there, and that tells me where the center is. And I have a 6-panel hat, so I know the center's here.
There we can see here. Make sure it lines up from up top.
How's it looking?
Pretty good.
Awesome. So I've got it, and as I pull this, it's going to slide a little bit, and it's going to move around. I'm going to have another chance to get that kind of lined up again, because it will move. These guys sometimes have a mind of their own. They start swinging around and get all over the place. So we'll talk about this a little bit. This is the band that's going to go over, and it's going to hold the cap in place on the cap frame. And there's a lot of teeth on these.
Here, let me get it up close.
So there's teeth right here, and that's going to grab right on the side here. There's teeth in the middle that go all the way around, and that's going to grab right into that seam. So we're not hooping it like this. And if you watch the webinar that Eric and I did a few years ago, you'll notice that I did a horrible job hooping because I had no idea what I was doing. However, it was great for learning and demonstrating. So those little teeth, they just grab right in that little seam. I'm going to check to make sure I'm still centered. Yeah. And then I'm grabbing these teeth down here. Oops. So I'm going to take it off just a little bit because I didn't get this backing up underneath those little rods. And actually, I'm going to take it off all the way and take a peek. Because what I did do is all of your hoops come with these nice little clamps. And those are great, and I'm going to show you that. You can use them on your structured hats. I just find they're more necessary for your unstructured hats and helping to hold them. So I'm going to take those off. And that's really what was giving me the hard time. Put this back on.
All right, take 2, huh?
Take 2. So that backing's perfectly fine. I'm going to put it back on, but I want to put it up underneath those little rods that are down there. Probably a little extra backing than you really need, but I like it to be all the way around. I just think it helps kind of fill it out a little bit. There we go. Perfect.
There we go.
All right, take 2. Okay.
So you've got your sweatband pulled out.
Yeah.
You've got your center aligned. You've got those teeth gripping right in the seam. Perfect.
And then right on this edge as well. And I'm pulling down as I'm doing this whole process. And then we have this cute little clamp here. I like to refer it to the old rain boots you used to have. The raincoat, rain boots. And I can remember having those as a kid, and I just thought they were the funnest little clamps. And basically what there is there's a hook down there that goes on. And notice that's not in the right place, so we're going to fix that. There's a little clip down there.
Yeah, just to get a little visual.
Yep. Because my teeth kind of got off. I'm going to just adjust it a little bit. There we go.
Looks great.
And it's off center, but that's okay because I'm working on a single head. So the thing, if this wasn't centered again, I've got it a little off centered. You would have to, if say you have a 4 head, a 2 head, a 12 head, if you have one hat off, it's not going to stitch out. It's going to stitch off center. Or maybe have the opposite. Maybe this is the one that you line up and the others are all going to be off. So you can be off a little bit if it's a single head. If you're embroidering 2 or more hats at the same time, you got to get that exact line up with that. So I'm not sure if you can show that, Morgan, but you can see this red line. and that seems
Oh yeah,
off
just a little bit. Okay.
So I would have to do that again if I was embroidering more. But today I'm not. So I'm just going to do the one, and we're going to line it up with our laser. So when it comes to putting the cap on, you know, you want it to be like this, but you got needles in the way. So you just simply turn it to the side, get it up underneath there so the bill will go up flat. And once you get it lined up, you kind of feel it.
Oh, it just snaps right in.
Snaps right in. And this particular one has 2 on the side and 1 on the bottom. So it has 3 different places where it locks in.
Okay.
And essentially there's a little bit of bounce there, but not a lot. And depending on the design, that's more important. One thing you can do with the caps is you can actually steam these hats to get them a little more softer, a little more pliable.
Oh.
If you don't have a steamer, you could just give it some like massaging to kind of just soften it up a little bit.
And is that just loosening up the buckram a little bit?
It is.
Okay.
Yep. So that's another option to do with that. So again, I'm going to save those. So I'm just going to do a simple Madeira logo here so that we can run this design, talk a little bit more about the caps, and then we're going to go on to using a stick-on backing and show how you can use that with your caps as well. So I have my design up here, and notice it's right side up, which is typical when you're embroidering on a shirt or whatnot. But remember, when we put our cap on, you know, this is the design right side up, but now I'm turning it upside down. So we know we've got to switch that. So I'm going to do that real quick. And I have certainly put them on the wrong way before.
Missed that step.
I have, absolutely. So now I've got my laser. It's actually not as bad off as I thought. So I'm just going to move it over a hair. If I'm doing the right thing. Hold on then.
I'm going to get a better look at this here.
Okay. I think I've got it centered. I've got the orientation correct. Something it doesn't like. I'm going to figure out what it is.
Well, we can take a look at a couple of these caps if you want.
Yeah.
So these are some samples that some Nancy had done and some we had brought in for us. You see that we don't limit ourselves to any thread type like Nancy said. We want to experiment with our frosted matte, our super twist, our metallics. Some local companies getting free advertising here
free
for a second.
advertising for sure. That's actually good. While you're doing that, actually, I'm going to think in my head what I need to actually do over here, because I think I'm just missing something really, really simple. But going back to the threads, we can talk about the location of the cap as well. These guys, you know, simple, straight on, right in the middle, everyday embroidery. I've done a few of them as well. Here I did a nice thick metallic thread. It's a 20 weight. Right in the middle, did the FS 40 weight metallic, right in the middle. We have the frosted matte on the side panel.
That one looks really nice.
I like that one. I like it sometimes when it's not just simple satin stitches, has a little bit of a fill going on there as well. Certainly a multicolored thread creates a really cool dimension.
Yeah.
As well.
That's neat. I feel like this is a result that a lot of customers are looking to produce. And
right. Absolutely. It's just something different. I did do something right on the back of this one, and we're going to talk about the stick-on backing, and I'll show you how I did that. And then we have, so we're up in New England here, so our home big city here is Boston. So just a nice outline of the sky, what do you call that? The landscape.
Skyline. Yeah,
Skyline, perfect. So I did that one in blue, did this one in the same color as the cap, so you got that tone on tone. So great, that pops. A little subtle and classy looking, in my opinion there. So, all right, so while we were doing that, my machine, our Melco, is not cooperating right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut this guy off, and maybe that's simply what it needs to do. But we can keep going. So that big noise you heard earlier was
me dropping things.
Tear stick-on kind of went away. So our E-Zee Tear stick-on tearaway backing is similar to what you might know out there as press and seal. And it has, so it's a tearaway backing, and it has stickiness on it with a release paper. So again, I've got my Hugos, keeping that labeled together, not falling apart. This stuff is more on the expensive side, so you don't want to be wasting it. So what you do with this is you actually hoop it, and then you take the release paper off. So I'm just going to cut a rough piece here. If anybody's watching and they know what I missed on the Melco, please let me know. So I'm hoping once we reboot it, it'll be in better shape. So notice it's very curly, which is great for caps, but I'm going to hoop this flat. So it simply has a memory, is what it is, because of the adhesive in that paper that's on the back side. So I'm just going to give it a little roll the opposite way. That was not the opposite way. This is the opposite way. There we go. A little flatter now. So I've already positioned my hoop, so I know that it's the right, roughly the right tightness. So soft, that's your tearaway. Really smooth and shiny, that's your paper.
Maybe I can zoom in and see.
See the difference?
We can see the difference here.
You can. I mean,
yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's got a rough look to it, and that's just simply your paper. If you had to take this off first, you just basically pull it away, and then it's going to come right off. But we don't want to do that yet because we don't want all that stickiness on the hoop itself. So we're going to hoop it first, and then we'll remove the paper. I'm going to pop the machine back on and cross my fingers that it just got tired for the day. So now I have a pair of scissors that has a point on it, and I'm just going to score the paper. I don't want to score the backing, so it's a little bit of a trial and error type thing here, that you just kind of feel it and you get used to it. Then I'm going to use my bent tweezers, and I'm just going to try and pick up one of those corners.
Oh, easy.
That worked out really well. So essentially now we're taking off the paper because I want to expose that stickiness. So I'm going to use that to hold my... This is great for not just caps. I'm going to use it for the back of the cap. I'm going to use it on the strap here. This is great for anything that you can't hoop or you don't want hoop burns. This comes in 21 inches wide, so you can put it in your larger hoops as well. And anything that you could stick on here and embroider, whether it's the collar of a shirt, the cuff of a shirt, anything that's odd that can't be hooped, this is super sticky and it's going to hold it. So I need 2 more things here. The red light's on. Let's see what it's saying. Emergency. So I leaned into my emergency. There it is. I knew it would be simple.
Something simple.
So we'll be able to get that going shortly. Funny. I've done that before and I knew it was going to be something super simple. If all else fails, read the arrow on the machine.
That's all right. We figured it out. Something is bound to happen during a live, right?
Right. So what I'm doing here is I'm Sometimes your hoops have lines on them, and that gives you, you know, a great side to side. This particular one has these screws here. Oh, you have the holes. Anything can be used to draw a straight line as long as you're doing the same. And so what I'm doing is I'm just simply drawing a line where I know I'm going to put the strap above it. So one thing to keep in mind with these types of straps is they're different from this. This has no Velcro on it. It goes in a nice little buckle there, and you can put quite a bit of information on the back of that. When you're talking about Velcro, you don't want to put too much embroidery on here because then the Velcro is not going to work.
Defeats the purpose.
A little bit. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to put it a little bit above the line.
Here, I'm going to...
Yep. And I basically want the same distance.
Just to make sure it's straight.
Yep.
Okay.
I can move my machine a little bit around, but why not start there? So what I want to do now is I'm going to go back to this guy, and then we'll jump over to that. So now I should be able to trace.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah, so you got to be careful with that button. So now I'm going to really watch it and make sure. That's a little bit high for me, so I'm going to move it down a little bit. Closer to the brim. Center that seam. So I don't know if you can see that, Morgan. I got my laser.
Yeah.
Right in the middle there. Do another.
Okay.
So that's where it belongs. And that's where I want it to be. So today, let's see what color I picked. On number 12, I want to actually switch that. I want to go and put the nice red on there. So that's number 3. There we go.
Perfect.
It's only like 1,600 stitches, so it won't take too long. I'm going to remember to start talking a little bit louder here because the machine is going to start going. And we got it at 600, so it's kind of low. And we're just going to let that run, and then we'll take it off in a minute. And then we'll go over to the paper machine to use the E-Zee Cap stick-on with the form. How are we doing? We got any questions?
Any questions? Yes, feel free to send them in now. It's a good kind of pausing point. We've got a couple viewers right now. We've got Chrissy and Bryce and Natalia. Anybody else wants to say hi, feel free to pop in here.
So we have the Unstructured cap here. And obviously the difference is there's no buckle, so it's kind of loose. You can take an unstructured cap and make it structured by simply taking a piece of cap backing that I have here. Remember that last week with the performance wear, I said I like to use the light spray. For the cap, I'm going to use a little heavy because I want this to stick very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray this guy. I have my hand off. So which way I want to go. I'm going to put it down here. Put a little light spritz on that. And I'm going to take this. I'm going to put it on the back of this guy. I've got to pull that sweatband out. I've really got that on my mind now. So I'm really good about that. Massaging, you want to get that back in there. To really soften out. So when I go to hoop this guy, I'm still going to grab another piece, put it up under there, and I'm going to use both of those.
A little makeshift structure.
There we go. And that's important. I'm going to show that as well. Do that away, that's okay. This I just put a little more of that red, really looks great on that tan. So this is the other hoop. The second one. So I'm going to use this one on the unstructured cap, and I'm going to use these flares. So I'm going to use those ones. I'm going to put that up on there. I'm going to use use one of the ones I've already pre-cut. Remember, it's flat. I'm going to round it. So that
Perfect.
and let's see, we'll get this guy out of the way. This is our cover here. So same exact thing. You're going to pull that sweatband out of the way. Make sure the backing goes all the way up. The band is up underneath there. I've got it lined. And for this guy, notice how much play there is there.
Yeah.
And is up under there. I don't think I did that cap on the inside very well. That's actually fighting it a little. So I'm going to try and get that a little flatter. So this one's already been embroidered. We're not going to embroider it today. This is the only unstructured cap I have to demonstrate today. So I'm only going to be demonstrating the hooping part of this guy. I'm going to see if I can get that nice and flat. There we go. Got to get this up underneath. There's a couple rods there. And then this is where you really want to pull it nice and flat. Sorry, guys. Same thing. You got that same seam there and the same sides. See if I can feel for that guy. I can. Oh, almost got it. There we go. See how we're doing up here. All right, so the thing that you want to do with this, and what's nice, is the little lever here. You can go over to your side.
Nice.
Ta-da. So I'm going to start on this side. And what you have is you have these nice dirty rods here. And what you do is you can pull it even more. And you clamp that on. Just like that. And they give you 2 for each side. So you do want to use them. There we go. You want it to lock in because you're pulling on it. So the more I pull here, the more flatter it goes here.
Oh, nice.
So that's what you do with your unstructured caps. So now that's pretty good. I'd probably massage that and work on it a little more. And but that's the idea for an unstructured cap. So I'm sorry that we can't embroider that today, but look, it's already done. Let's take a look at this guy. Well, looks like we had an issue in here. That happens sometimes when you're not watching it. Maybe you wouldn't even notice the E's a little bit messed up, but that's okay. That happens. So it comes off the same exact way. That little lever, little hook there, and out.
While you're doing that, Nancy, did you find that it was easier to hoop the unstructured cap or the structured cap?
I think the structured cap, in my opinion, hoops easier. It seems to embroider just as well. As you saw, we had to put a little more effort into that. We put the extra piece of backing in. We really pulled on it to get it nice and taut. And I think it's just like anything. The more you do it, the easier it gets. Probably if you're doing this production-wise, which we typically don't do here at Madeira, they're probably both just as easy.
Yeah,
as
just
other.
a couple extra steps. Talia, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Talia. So tear away back in, tears right away, and that's ideal. Nice heavy-duty fabric here. It doesn't need a lot of stability throughout the life of the garment. So now, there it is on the back. It's all gone away. If I was a really picky embroiderer, I'd go in there and get out in between the E.
Oh, nice.
And the A. Just take that extra backing out. And then you notice this gets a little wacky here. And that's because we stretched it when we hooped it. So same thing, just give it a little massage. And it's got memory, so it's going to go right back to where it was.
Oh, nice. Looks brand new.
I know. So, again, not one that's going to go to our customer because our E had a little issue we didn't notice, but that's okay. So you've got your cardboard here. You could actually, if this was going to go to your customer, it would be a nice thing to just throw that back in there. Gives it a little more support when it goes to the customer. So that's that. We're going to go back to this guy. I must have taken this off. So I'm just going to put it right back on. And this is a really nice sticky backing. Stick-on backing can go bad over time if you have it for, a half a year to a year. You kind of want to buy what you need to use type thing. And it depends on the conditions of your air quality. A lot of humidity is going to break down the glue that's on there. So I'm going to bring this over to the Tajima machine. Get this guy out of the way. And see if Morgan can make it over here. I think she can. So what I've got is I've just got a real simple lettering with running stitches here. A little hard to read there, but it just says work hard, ... play harder.
Ah, perfect for Labor Day coming up.
So now that this is kind of on there, it's straight. I'm going to line it up. I'm going to get it in the machine. I'm going to let the hat kind of hang on the back side. Let's see if we can get this guy going. There. So I've got my laser way up there, so that's certainly not where I want it. It's always fun going from one machine to the next because it's always the opposite. I'll get it there. That's looking pretty good. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a press here. This is pressure sensitive adhesive, so the harder you press on it, the more it holds. And I just want to make sure none of my presser feet is going to catch it. So I'm going to give that a little trace.
And for this, our hat is staying right side up, so we don't have to flip the design at all.
That's right. Yep. Do that one more time. And then let her rip. Turn out, turn out. So what did we cover today? There we go.
Bryce chimed in with a question. While you're working with that really small design in the small area, are you working with a different weight thread at all?
Yes, actually this is a 6-8 thread.
So that's going to be smaller than your standard 40 weight, and that's perfect for these small letters and super intricate designs.
Absolutely.
Great question, Bryce. Thank you.
Well, it was kind of slowing that down a little bit. It's a little too late.
Does the Velcro on the back of the strap give you any trouble at all?
No, and the nice thing about this one is this is the softer side of the Velcro. So it's not like it's plastic, it's just really fluffy.
Oh, perfect.
So it's not giving me any trouble. Except for putting the thread in the really tiny hole for 6-8. So at 6-8 thread, you would use a 65-9 needle.
Oh, so it's extra small.
It is.
Here, well, we'll turn around and let you focus so you don't have an audience while you do that.
It worked. It went through. Awesome. So let's see, we'll back that up a little bit, see how far we missed. Like it there. So needles, this is a sharp needle, and if you're not aware, we actually just started needles and not have the sharp. So in here, I used a 7511 sharp here because we were working with the 40 weight thread. So needles, always use a sharp. And if it's a new project or new job that you're doing, by all means change out your needles. Start with a fresh one. They're pretty inexpensive, probably around 5 cents a piece. So it's a great time to change out your needles. The average life of a needle is about 8 hours. So always a good time to start that or to change it when you start a new job.
Absolutely. Is there a different needle that you recommend for a double seamed cap? That's a question from Chrissy.
Thank you, Chrissy. So what Chris is asking about is a double seam like this. So I just used the 7511. Yes, we did have an issue there. I'm not going to blame that on the needle. However, if you find that this is bouncing too much, you're having a hard time getting it hooped, and you need to use a stronger needle, then you could go up to an 80-12 needle. And you have embroidery needles, which are large eye needles, and you have construction needles, which are standard eye. So there's an 80-12 standard eye needle out there that you could use, and that might give you a little more help in the needle deflection. And we know what, hopefully we know what needle deflection is, but I'll explain it to you a little bit. The needle goes down this really tiny hole here. So if you've got too much loft on your cap and it's bouncing up and down, as the needle goes through, it actually doesn't hit the hole, it hits the side of the hole, so it's deflecting. So of course, if that tiny needle hits that metal, it's going to break.
Absolutely.
So there's a little less deflection with a heavier or larger needle.
Awesome. Thanks, Nancy. Thank you, Chrissy, for that question.
So I'm going to take this guy off. And it is really small.
Oh yeah, look
not
at
all
that.
that easy to read. However, this is tearaway as well, so it's going to simply tear away. And if you were going to embroider a couple of these, you've got all the stickers,
yeah.
so you don't have to throw it away just after that. Got a little bit of paper back there, a little bit of thread, and we want that hook and eye to work on the Velcro. So the less you have back there, the better.
Awesome. The Velcro test here, make sure everything still sticks.
Well, it's sticking to my fingernails. And there we go.
Perfect.
Nice and snug. So you just want to keep it on this kind, you want to keep it, your letters kind of small. Could be a little nicer than that you'd be able to read them. So I think we've covered everything here. If there's any questions, continue to send us your questions and we will get back to you.
Awesome. Nancy, thank you so much for all that helpful info. The needles and easy backing are available to everyone right at MadeiraUSA.com. And if you want to call in 800-225-3001 to add it to your next order, you're free to do that as well. If you haven't heard me mention it, we are in the midst of a series where we are digging deeper into different garments and fabric types. So just like we did today with the caps and last week with performance, there'll be more later this month that you can dive into with us. So keep an eye out for those. That's all for us, but if you think of any questions, comment here and we will get them answered for you. Thank you so much for watching. We are Madeira USA and we will see you next time. Bye!